Hey, this is Warren Redlick. I'm going to be presenting on this in Bangkok in a few days, and I just wanted to give it a practice run and give you all a sense of where I'm thinking about the future of Tesla stock. And I am thinking that Tesla stock is going to rise to insane numbers. I have suggested insane numbers in the past. This is based on napkin math. I'm going to go through the napkin math. The explanation is simple, but there's some details to it. But as you can see, I'm projecting that you can see Tesla should 4x by 2026. 12x by 2028, yes, 75x by 2030, and 300x by 2032. These timelines are a little loose. If you push it back a couple years, who cares? The first thing that most of us know is that Tesla robotaxis will start in Texas and California late 2025, or if we're going on Elon time, it'll be 2026. And it'll be mostly Model Ys and Model 3s, probably a low volume of operation just to prove the concept. Here's what's going to happen with robotaxis. I think we've all covered that, so let's move past that. The current environment in the United States in particular is that Uber and Lyft, I mentioned Grab because I'm presenting this in Thailand, and Grab is the equivalent of Uber in Thailand. Uber, Lyft, and taxi rides cost about $3 a mile, for Thai people 65 baht per kilometer. The human driver is the most expensive part of the cost of providing a ride with Uber or Lyft. This is, by the way, not true in Thailand. Leaving aside rideshare, now, US owners spend about 70 cents a mile or 15 baht per kilometer on their vehicle. If you own a vehicle and you drive it, on average, people spend about that. If you have a 10-year-old clunker and you drive 25,000 miles a year and you have low insurance rates, your number might be lower. If you have 2 DUIs on your record and you drive a BMW 7 Series and you drive 5,000 miles a year, then your price per mile goes up a lot because you have a lot of expenses and you're not driving a lot of miles. But on average, I think it's ARK Invest and I think others say it's about 70 cents a mile, maybe 65, but let's call it 70 cents a mile. So initially, Robotaxi will replace Uber and taxis and Lyft at about $2 a mile. So undercutting the $3 per mile price, 43 baht per kilometer. As the supply of robotaxis increases, you will eventually drive the price down. And you can't charge too little early on because you won't have enough robotaxis to meet the demand from customers. If you charge 60 cents a mile when you don't have enough robotaxis, then people would just have to wait too long for a ride. So you have to balance your ride price with supply and demand. So ride price is not going to be something that Tesla is going to say, okay, it's $1 a mile, go. They can't set price at $1 a mile initially because demand would be too high for the volume of robotaxis that they have available. So as the supply of robotaxis increases, the price will gradually fall. When the ride price falls under 70 cents a mile, which is what US owners spend per mile, and similar in, say, Western Europe, Australia, certain other countries that are wealthy countries, you're going to see similar costs and similar results. As the ride price falls under 70 cents a mile, a large share of vehicle owners switch over. So the market becomes very, very large when vehicle owners decide, I don't want to own a car anymore. And it doesn't mean like you can keep owning a car if you want to. And if you think, well, I'm not going to do that because blah, blah, blah. Okay. But imagine that you are an ordinary middle class, working class person, and riding robotaxi is going to save you $2,000 or $3,000 a year, and it's going to save you 20 or 30 hours a year in terms of the time cost of managing the ownership of your own vehicle. So a lot of people will start to switch. You'll see the people who have the DUI on their record, they have bad credit, and these things drive up their cost of ownership. Those people are going to switch first. When those people switch, by the way, the people who have higher insurance rates, it's because they have more accidents. So the roads get safer faster because you're removing the most dangerous drivers from the road earlier. People who are driving without a license no longer need to drive without a license because they can ride robotaxis and they don't want to get arrested. So you're removing the most dangerous drivers from the road. So we should see traffic safety increase dramatically in the United States. What we're going to see is, and it's an important thing to understand, I think most Tesla fans understand this, the high usage, the 100,000 miles a year that the vehicle drives, 160,000 kilometers a year that the vehicle drives, amortizes the vehicle. When you drive 20,000 miles a year, 15,000 miles a year, you're amortizing your vehicle over a lot fewer miles. Because robotaxis are going to drive so much higher mileage, the amortization, the cost of the vehicle spread over the number of miles driven becomes much lower. So the cost per mile falls for that. And using electric versus gas lowers cost per mile as well. Probably some other factors that will lower cost per mile compared to owners, compared to ownership. And this is, of course, why it's much less expensive than Uber. You're saving money on the driver. You're saving money on amortization. You're saving money on electricity versus gas. Just keep in mind that human driver cost is much, much lower in less wealthy countries. I've taken grabs in Thailand. I've taken grabs in Vietnam. I've taken grabs in Malaysia. The cost of rides in these countries is, and India, not grabs, but I've taken taxis in India. The cost of human drivers in those places is much, much lower. So I don't think we're going to see robo-taxis in poor countries early, emerging economies, whatever you want to call them, countries that are not as wealthy as the United States, are not in that class, are going to see robo-taxi later, because if you're Tesla and you can sell a robo-taxi and you can charge $2 a mile in the US or $1 a mile in the US, but you have to charge 40 cents a mile in Thailand to be competitive, it makes sense to sell all your robo-taxis or run all your robo-taxis in higher price markets until you've saturated those markets. And even then, I think you're probably going to need a lower cost vehicle like my pod car fantasy in order to reach poorer countries, because human drivers are just so cheap. The early growth. Tesla will begin manufacturing Cybercab in 2026. The cost per mile for Cybercab, I think we're going to see roughly 30 cents per paid mile, zero point 0.3 US dollars per paid mile, assuming that the optimization of the Robotaxi network means that the cars drive 100,000 miles a year and they do 60,000 paid miles, let's say. It's just a ballpark guess. So if Tesla has 100,000 Tesla-owned Cybercabs by 2027, the gross profit per paid mile is probably $1 or more, because you probably still haven't gotten your price point down to $1 a mile when you only have 100,000 Cybercabs. You barely have enough to meet demand in a few cities at that point. At 60,000 paid miles a year, you've got $60,000 profit per vehicle. That's $6 billion in gross profit for Tesla. Well, Tesla's gross profit last year was around 20 billion or 18 billion. The last 3 years, it's been hovering around 20 billion. So $6 billion in gross profit's a lot, right? That's a big increase for Tesla. And there's a lot of other good things going on. So Tesla's going to have other increases in gross profit from, say, Megapack and so on. And that leads to, and then people see the Robotaxi network operating and they can see the growth that I'm going to talk about here. And that's the kind of thing that drives up Tesla's share price in 2025 into 2026. And that's why you see a 4x or more by 2026. It's really, when you get down to what's the value of Tesla in 2032, and you're an investor, and once you start to see the math that I'm going to describe here, some investors like me are going to get in early, and they're going to try to get in before the rise. That's something. The question is just, at what point does the big money on Wall Street say, oh my God, we got to get in on this? And the big money on Wall Street, the big money in retail investors who don't get Tesla yet, there's a lot of money out there that probably should be going into Tesla stock, and it's not there yet. And I think we're going to see it go there as we see this profit wheel start spinning. So, once you got 100,000 Cybercabs, generating revenue, and I'm leaving out Model 3s and Model Ys and Model S's and Model X's and Cybertrucks that are also generating revenue. I'm leaving out individual owned vehicles that are contributing, say, 30% or 40% of their revenue to Tesla. And that could be millions of vehicles. So there may be a lot more value here that I'm not counting. Looking forward to 2030, it seems likely Tesla will have its own fleet of 10 million Cybercabs. Elon has mentioned that before. That seems like a not crazy position for Tesla to be in. That would be deployed across the US. Some states will hold out, but I don't think they'll hold out into 2030. New York, Michigan, Illinois, Massachusetts might be holdouts, but by 2030, it should have been spread across the United States. We should see it in European countries. We'll probably see it in Japan, Australia, New Zealand. When you take the wealthier countries in the world, they're going to adopt, because the value creation is insane, the benefit. And if you stay behind, by the way, if you decide as a country, well, we don't want this, you're destroying your own competitiveness, because this lowers transactions costs. This lowers transportation costs. It makes your economy more efficient. If you choose not to adopt a technology that makes your economy more efficient, you're condemning yourself to falling behind. Same thing with Optimus, which we'll talk about later. So if you have 10 million vehicles in Tesla's fleet and they're only making $40,000 a year in gross profit, we've fallen from $60,000 a year in gross profit to 40, because as you've scaled up to 10 million Cybercabs and you're covering a much greater area of territory, your average prices probably come down a bit per mile. So you're looking at $400 billion a year in Tesla gross profit. Well, Tesla's gross profit in the last 3 years has been about $20 billion. So if on Robotaxi alone, leaving out Megapack, leaving out selling cars, leaving out privately owned vehicles that are operating in the Robotaxi network too, just on Tesla owning a fleet of 10 million cybercabs, you're potentially looking at $400 billion in Tesla gross profit, and it could be more. I'm being conservative here. I think in the past I've modeled this as $500 billion, but just leave it at $400 billion. That's a 20x. That doesn't include other profit. That's a 20x. A 20x on a current share price of $350 a share, let's say, well, that's $7,000 a share, right? And that's not, that's now you're still anticipating, well, what's the future growth? What's the future growth of this company, right? But, $400 billion gross profit, and there are potential limitations to this that I'll talk about later in the video, like governments getting in the way, governments not liking Tesla making so much money. There's all kinds of potential issues that we could face, but just on the napkin math, you can see where this is going, that this is a 20x. So long term, in the future, in 2032, 2035, something like that, Tesla probably owns 100 million cybercabs. And there's plenty of room in the market. Now, the profit per vehicle, the way I model this, has fallen now to $20,000 profit per year each. That's a $2 trillion a year Tesla gross profit. That's 100x on the past 3 years. 100x. Well, 100x on $350 a share is $35,000 a share. It doesn't include other profit, doesn't include profit from Megapack, it doesn't include profit from Optimus, which we'll talk about next. And Optimus is bigger, doesn't include whether they're selling cars, doesn't include AI as a service, AI training as a service, other things that Tesla might be developing that we don't know about. But just here alone, $2 trillion in Tesla gross profit. I know the number sounds crazy, but the napkin math is pretty straightforward. 100 million cybercabs, $20,000 in profit a year each. It's not crazy to have them make 20. And look, say it's only $10,000 a year in profit each, and it's only $1 trillion and is only a 50x. Are you going to cry if you're holding Tesla stock now? So this is the beauty of napkin math. You can say, you know what, Warren's being over optimistic. It's only going to make 10,000 a year in profit, and it's only going to be 50 million cybercabs. So you're only half a trillion dollars in gross profit on that alone. It's not bad. Let's turn to Tesla Optimus, humanoid robots. Right now in America, low wage jobs pay about $20 an hour, 700 baht an hour for Thai people. The Thai minimum wage is something like $10 a day. So it's a dramatic difference in the value, the value of a worker, the value of reducing the need for workers, laborers in American jobs. So at $20 an hour, if Optimus replaces one worker for 2 shifts, that's 4,000 hours a year times $20. Optimus is generating $80,000 a year in value for the owner. You own a 10-person, a McDonald's that has 10 people working at one time. You own a warehouse that has 10, whatever the business is. If you imagine you have 10 people working at one time and you have 2 shifts, you could easily see Optimus replacing those 2 people. Not to say that it does all the work of any one person, but you're able to have Optimus do enough that 9 people can fill what 10 people used to do. It's that simple. $80,000 a year. If Optimus runs for 10 years, it saves $800,000 in value. I'm leaving out that Optimus improves over time because there's more training, it improves, and you get Optimus capable of doing even more. But if it's just able to replace a $20 an hour worker, one $20 an hour worker, it generates $800,000 in value over a 10-year life. I'm leaving out some other, things, workers' comp benefits and other costs of the workers. So, the lawsuits that you face because a worker says you discriminated, you're not going to, the Optimus is never going to sue you for workplace discrimination. There's never going to be a sexual harassment suit involving Optimus. Probably not. So if it costs $10,000 to build Optimus at scale, which is a good ballpark, and you sold Optimus for $100,000 or $110,000, let's say. Now, keep in mind, the employer is going to get $800,000 in value, so they're easily going to pay $110,000 for this, probably $200,000 or more, because their return on investment's insane. But if you only made $100,000 in profit per bot times 10 million bots a year, you've got $1 trillion in gross profit. Remember, we had 2 trillion before for Robotaxi, but this is just on Optimus, just on 10 million bots a year. And of course, the number gets bigger. In the long term, Optimus training will increase its capabilities, so the dollars per hour go up. Tesla will probably be making in the ballpark of 100 million robots a year. I know that sounds crazy, but if they can make 20 million cars a year, if Toyota can make 10 million cars a year, a robot is less complicated than a car. 100 million robots a year is not crazy. This is at least $10 trillion a year in gross profit. That's 500x recent gross profit. Now, keep in mind again, the value in less wealthy countries is lower. Wealthy countries will. So, one of the interesting side points about this is if you are concerned about what's called the digital divide, that rich countries have more, poor countries have less, because the value add for having Optimus in a rich country where replacing a $20 an hour worker is greater than the value add of having Optimus replace a $10 a day worker. And it literally, the Optimus may not pay for itself replacing a $10 a day worker. You're going to see Optimus and Robotaxi deployed in much greater volume in wealthy countries like the United States and across Western Europe, assuming that Western Europe doesn't get in the way because they're trying to protect their laborers. But if you get in the way, what ultimately ends up happening is if you have Optimus deployed in one country and not another, the country that has Optimus deployed becomes more competitive. They're able to their worker productivity goes up, the productivity of labor goes up, the productivity of capital goes up. You see dramatically improved production in those countries. They become far more competitive, and it creates massive distortion in markets. And the only way out for any countries to say, well, we better take Optimus too. That's the game. That's a huge game change. But you can see $10 trillion a year in gross profit, 500x recent gross profit, 500x on $350 a share. Call it 500x on $200 a share. You're at $100,000 per share. $100,000 per share, right? So I think I'm being conservative. Now I recognize you, again, you can say, all right, they're only going to make 50 million robots a year. Somehow they're going to make less profit. I think they're actually going to make far more profit than this per robot. It's crazy that you would limit them to $100,000 in profit on something that's generating 800,000 plus in value. That's where we're going. And I see so many uses for Optimus, and there's jobs that maybe aren't done because the cost doesn't make sense. As you expand Optimus, you're going to see more work done. You're probably going to see a lot more solar panels going up on roofs because the cost of the labor putting solar. I'm a big advocate for using Optimus or some kind of robot to do solar panels on roofs because you're protecting human life, because humans going up on a roof are at risk. The value add becomes much higher because your cost of installation gets lower. So the value from having the solar on the roof goes up relative to the cost of installation. The ROI on putting up a solar roof goes up dramatically. And so you may end up seeing like a 5x or 10x in the number of solar panels deployed or solar roofs deployed in rich countries first and maybe others. The cost of energy is similar country to country. So the value of Optimus deploying solar panels might be better in some other countries, but still, the cost of the labor in these countries is lower. There's a couple of ways of pushing back on this. One is there's going to be competition. I don't see meaningful competition for Tesla in either Robotaxi or Optimus. Solving vehicle and robot autonomy requires massive data and massive compute. This is the Tesla compute cluster at Giga Texas, the south side of the factory. Only Tesla is manufacturing robots at scale. They're currently manufacturing roughly 2 million wheeled robots a year. And they have the capacity to manufacture a huge volume of Optimus robots once they're ready for it. They are doing all the work to be able to manufacture robots at scale. They have in-house developed a lot of the technology that goes in these robots, huge advantages. So they're manufacturing data at scale. They're generating data at scale. So they're leading the world in real-world AI compute, both on the inference side, which is the chip in the car that's making the decisions on how to drive, and the chip that will be in the bot making decisions on what to do, and training, which is the cluster like this one that takes all the data and figures out how do we improve the training so that the bots in the cars do better next time. So the other threat, the biggest threat, in my opinion, to this positive future is governments. Governments will be terrified of the changes in the economy. They will be terrified of Tesla becoming a source of political power and economic power that rivals their own. And keep in mind, the value that's created here is a tremendous benefit to humanity. But governments don't care about that. Governments care about their own power more than they care about benefits for their people. So now some countries are better than others, But you can definitely see pushback from countries when they say, oh my God, this company is making too much money. This company has too much power. This company has too much influence. We need to break it up. I expect that Elon, being the 4D chess player that he is, will break up Tesla in certain ways as time goes on. So Tesla Europe might be a spinoff. Tesla China might be a spinoff. Tesla Energy might be a spinoff. The Robotaxi network might IPO. There's a lot of different ways that Tesla can anticipate the antitrust effort to break up this large company and just spin it off into different companies that, of course, are all coordinated, working together, and Elon's the largest shareholder of all of them. So you still have a lot of economic power in Elon. Elon becomes a multi-trillionaire. Elon funds Mars, and we get to Mars. We have a colony on Mars. We have a base on Moon. We have a colony on Mars. But I do think the greatest threat very clearly is government. Government has established itself as the greatest threat to progress. We have massive progress happening right now, thanks to Tesla. And then we still have the real world AI. Does it become real world AGI? There's an AGI that might be developed in computers that are sitting there as large language models. But AGI deployed in a humanoid robot or in a car could be a lot more valuable. And you can imagine what we're going to see with Optimus initially is you train it to do certain tasks and it'll be able to replace some workers. But over time, as you develop real world AI and real world AGI, you'll be able to tell Optimus, go do that, something it's never been trained to do, and it figures out how to do it because it's developed AGI. Real world AGI, artificial general intelligence, artificial super intelligence. So a lot of potential for a lot of great things to happen. But obviously, as a Tesla shareholder, this is a huge story because there's tremendous potential for Tesla shareholders to make a lot of money. If you are invested in Tesla right now, you can look to, and this is not financial advice, and you got to do your own research. And my view, I'm holding nearly all my assets in Tesla other than some cash and maybe a tiny bit, like less than 1% of my portfolio in some other stocks that I just haven't sold yet. If you see this value creation, then $350 a share is super cheap compared to where this company is going. It's my opinion. I'm invested in Tesla stock for that reason. A lot of the people that I know that get this, the Stephen Mark Ryans of the world, the CERN bashers of the world, a lot of other people in the Tesla community, James Dauma, a lot of other people see this. This future is massive growth. I can't say that Nvidia won't grow as much. I can't say that there isn't some other company that won't grow as much, but I don't see the growth in other companies the way I see it in Tesla. So if somebody has a better story, please let me know in the replies to this post on X or in comments on YouTube. And please, on that note, please check out the t-shirts at elonbits.com. Starting in a couple days, there is a Black Friday sale with 15% off all the shirts at elonbits.com. I think the code is Merry15, MERRY 15. I will share that in the post and I will share that in the description. Please share this video with your friends, like it, subscribe to my YouTube channel, follow me on X. Please support me on X by becoming a subscriber, become a YouTube channel member on YouTube. Support me on Patreon, support me on the Daily Lie. Please check out my other videos, and thank you so much for watching.